So, Nottingham Forest have started pre-season with 2 goalless draws in a row, and that probably suggests more than anything that we need to sign some forwards. Off the back of course, losing Elanga and Sosa, we only have 2 senior wingers at the club so far, and we could be losing a certain somebody on top of this too. There's not really much to say on Gibbs-White this week other than the fact that this whole situation is just dragging on, and really we just want to find a solution as soon as possible, and you'd think surely the only way out of this is that we just let him go. We haven't really seen Spurs do anything to try and get this over the line, and Man City are also now showing interest in him again, and I'm not sure how true that is. Gibbs-White did reportedly say to Martyn that he'd only leave if it is to a certain level of club, and that would be Man City. And there seems to be a growing frustration between the fan base that we just want to see some players come in now, especially when you've let go of 2 forwards in a week, could be more. We just want to see some players come in and have that squad depth, because we've looked at the second half 11s of both these friendlies, especially the first one. It was basically just a youth academy. Even the team that played the second half against Monaco, if that played in the Premier League, you'd be quite concerned. This is also on top of Danilo leaving the club too in the last week, going back home to Botafogo. Obviously an awful season for him last year with that injury so early into the season. That kept him out half the season, and then he struggled to get back in and only really had a handful of good games after that. And it was just a really, unfortunate situation for him, and it's probably the best solution for him to move on and go back home, probably where he's more comfortable as well, to Botafogo. And it kind of came out of the blue, that really. We thought he was going to be going to Lyon or Real Betis, but no, all of a sudden he's off to Brazil again. And probably the biggest reason why we need to be signing some wingers this summer window is because it might actually be about to happen. We might be about to sell Josh Bowler permanently. I know. You're probably thinking, why has he put that at the start of the video? It's Josh Bowler. Well, exactly. It's Josh Bowler. You know what I mean? 0 appearances for us in 3 years. But let's talk about players who can come in and replace these forwards. Mainly Dan and Ndoye. This has been the main one that we've seen in the last week, and the one that looks to actually be having a bit of traction to it. In 2 seasons at Bologna, he's won the Coppa Italia last season, scoring the winning goal in the final against Milan. And his first season wasn't actually that impressive, but last year we saw him score 8 goals and assist 4 times. His main position is down the right, but he can play basically anywhere across the front line. I wasn't all that aware of him before we saw him be rumoured to us, but I quickly remembered just how good he was at the Euros last year with Switzerland, where he did score against Germany, assisted by Remo Freuler, a player who he also plays with at Bologna. Apparently Ndoye has said yes to the Forest project, but the first bid has been rejected by Bologna from Forest. But it's fantastic, even more encouraging really than the clubs being on terms, that the player is on terms. So this is surely a sign that eventually we're going to see the 2 clubs agree a deal. Now, he does appear to be not the same sort of player as Elanga, but can offer similar sort of attributes and certainly a bit different at the same time. So I think this would be a good fit for us. We've also seen a strong report from John Percy saying that we are still interested in James Mcatee. In fact, we're advancing our interest in Mcatee. Of course, the City attacking midfielder, 25 to 35 million. It could be quite an expensive one, this, and I don't think he's really worth it. I've seen quite a mixed response in terms of whether Mcatee is wanted at Forest or not. And I think ultimately we're comparing whoever comes in to be that number 10 to a certain Morgan Gibbs-White. We're not going to get somebody as good as Gibbs-White. So when Mcatee comes in, it's a bit underwhelming. That's why I think people are looking at it like they are. There's a lot of clubs linked with him in the Premier League as well as Bundesliga clubs too. But we seem to be really trying to push this one to happen. And I'm not going to say I'm absolutely ecstatic if this does happen, but I wouldn't be against it also. But for that price tag, I'm not so sure. The only update on the Jacob Ramsey situation, of course, this is meant to be one of our main targets this summer for the wing. He can also play down the middle and even further back. So, he's versatile. Apparently 50 million is being spoken about. That, I think, would be quite steep for somebody who's not an absolute guaranteed starter at Villa. He's played a lot of games for Villa, of course, and has had regular football at this level. But he is apparently one of our main targets. And I do think this one could very well happen. It's going to be tough because, you know, Premier League players are going to be inflated. They're going to be more expensive probably than elsewhere. So it's going to be harder to see this one happen, really. But I think at that price, it's quite steep. Now, one more potential number 10 signing that I've seen linked in the last week is El Khanous from Leicester City. This might not sound good that we're being linked with a Leicester player, but he was definitely one of their best players last season in what was obviously a horrific season and side that they had last year. And El Khanous was a shining light in a poor team. And I don't think that makes him somebody who couldn't play for a better team. I think he definitely could. Not got a lot of pedigree to his name, but he's only a young player. Number 10, can play out wide. I wouldn't be against it. It would probably be more of a depth option, like, you know, replacing Sosa, rather than to come in and replace Gibbs-White or Elanga. So if he's going to come in and do, you know, a Sosa Jota-like role, I wouldn't be against that. I think some people will be more mixed on this one, mainly because he plays for Leicester. But just looking at him as a player, I think he'd be a decent signing. Nothing insane, but I think he'd be pretty good. Aston Villa and Sunderland, as well as a number of European clubs also showing an interest in El Khanous. Apparently, the heavy spending Sunderland are the favourites to land his signing. The only other forward I've seen in the last week be linked, and it looks a bit more of a side rumour, is Ndoye. I hope I said his last name correct. Liverpool youngster, 20, in fact not even 20, he's 19 years of age, right winger. He spent last season on loan at Middlesbrough in the Championship, didn't do insane in terms of a goal return, but played 24 times for them. Liverpool though, again, are asking for a lot of money for a relatively unproven 19-year-old, 25 million. So I can't see that happening. I know I'm saying, oh, all these prices are inflated, but they are. So I feel this one probably isn't worth pursuing. He's played 6 times for Scotland and played 20 times for Liverpool at youth level. So I just don't think there's enough to go off, really. You know, I'm not saying he wouldn't be a good signing, but for that price and what we've actually seen from him, I think it's a bit of a gamble. Now, I spoke about this player a few weeks ago and it has resurfaced again this week. Pablo Maffo from Mallorca, of course, in Spain. 5 million apparently the fee, with 1 million's worth in add-ons. A right back, 28 years of age. This feels like an Alex Moreno sort of replacement, but on the other side. We're going to need to really sign, well, at least one fullback, arguably 2, to support both Aina and Nico Williams. But he's played a lot of games for Mallorca the last several years in La Liga, and apparently he wants to move as well to Forest. So is that true? I don't know how true that is, but that is what's being reported, and whether Forest are going to really go for this or not, time will tell. I've also seen another resurfaced rumour in Douglas Luiz, obviously a midfielder, maybe a Danilo replacement, and obviously would only make our midfield go to another level. Hasn't really worked out for him at Juventus, obviously was fantastic at Aston Villa for a number of years. Everton, West Ham and Aston Villa as well, also showing an interest in him. In fact, a lot of clubs. I've seen a lot of clubs linked with Douglas Luiz. I'm surprised he's not left Juventus. It's not really worked for him over there. So a return to England looks pretty likely at the moment. However, we do seem to be more of an outcast in terms of this rumour. We're certainly not the front runners for this. So I'm not really convinced this is going to happen, at least right now, unless we really try and push for it. But I don't think we're going to just yet. But it's something I've seen, so worth talking about. And to end the video, just a little update on the Youth Academy. We've also seen Jamie McDonald join Mansfield in the last week on loan. He's also joining Joe Gardner and Carl McAdam, who are also on loan at Mansfield. So 3 Forest players, all on loan with Nigel Clough. There's a lot of Forest-themed links going on there. He won the League 2 Young Player of the Season last year with Colchester and was part of the League 2 Team of the Season. So it's a big deal at that level. I don't see him ever really playing for us at all, but he's probably one of our best young players. But again, he's probably just one that's going to keep getting loaned, especially when his contract expires next summer as well. But let me know, everyone, please, of any other rumours that you'd like me to include going forward this summer transfer window in these videos. In fact, I've never actually said this, but if you do ever see a rumour and you want me to include it in the future, just tag me on Twitter at rads_NFFC, and you know, that'll make sure that I see it. But if you have enjoyed this video, everyone, please hit the like button, subscribe to Rads if you're new. Let's try and get to 7,000 subscribers as soon as we can, which would be fantastic if you could help me out with that. So thanks for watching, and up the Reds.